I'm Danielle Mitchell, and this is the Poetry Lab podcast. I started the Poetry Lab 10 years ago to help struggling, self-taught writers like me find a place in their community to write, read, learn, and collaborate. As an intersectional feminist, writer, and teaching artist, I help writers tap into their craft with radical self-compassion, unlike anything they've ever seen in the creative writing classroom before. If you're a creative person trying to establish a writing practice in the real world, this podcast is designed to help you carve out the time, the courage, and the inspiration to keep writing your new shit. Are you ready, poet? Let's get into it.
Hey y'all, Lori here. I am a prose poet and creative nonfiction writer. In my day job, I am a social media marketer and creative career consultant. My primary mission is to help you build a sustainable creative career, whatever that looks like for you, and make marketing yourself as a poet, if not fun, then at least as painless as possible, and make social media something useful, joyful, and not something you have to do all the time, unless you want to. I am so excited to share this journey with you, and today we are talking about productivity for poets. Now, I'm probably the last person to talk about creating on a schedule, so I'm not talking about that kind of productivity for poets. I have, on the other hand, done a lot of research on how to be more productive in general. I mean, who doesn't want to get more done more quickly? Who doesn't want to knock out their to-do list so they can write some new shit? I believe that these tips could apply to a variety of areas: managing your creative career, getting your paid work done quickly and efficiently so that you can create your own art, and honestly, even to an extent, this could be applied to the act of creating itself. Are you ready, poet? Let's go. Before we dive into my favorite productivity methods, let's talk a bit about why you need some sort of a productivity system in place to begin with. Now, like I alluded to in my introduction, adopting at least some of these productivity habits will help you knock out your to-do list in a shorter amount of time, which means that you can move on to being creative or doing something else with your time, because who wants to work all the time? This episode actually came about because I had a week where I kind of overscheduled myself. I had 2 episodes of the Poetry Lab podcast that I needed to write and record. I needed to come up with a work proposal / work agreement for a new client. I needed to make an image for a friend who is looking for reviewers for her new book. I needed to create a month's worth of social media content for a different client. I needed to prepare for a discovery call with a potential client. I was participating in a beta of a program and needed to be there live on all the days that that was running. I had meetings scheduled throughout the week. I had a writing deadline, and I'm sure a bunch of other stuff that I'm forgetting, which it's not feeling too good. But so I might have to employ the last tip that I'm going to be talking about. It's also cold AF here in Oklahoma today while I'm recording. So really, all I want to be doing is curling up with a book instead of participating in anything to do with the outside world. So how can I get all of that stuff done without missing any deadlines while still staying mostly on top of my Yoga with Adriene 30 days of yoga, committing to writing for an hour a day and sleeping at night and not having an ill-timed minty bee? Listener, I have a productivity system in place. I kind of like being organized. It really helps me stay on top of my deadlines. It helps me juggle lots of moving pieces of different weights and sizes and importance. That's the why of needing a productivity system in place. Let's talk about some of my favorite ways to do that. So, first productivity tip: batching. Batching is dedicating chunks of time to work on similar tasks without any interruption. This whole episode was born out of me wanting to batch write my podcast scripts so that I could do other work before a meeting and then record the episodes back to back. My brain has to be in a certain space to write a script for an episode, and then it's in a different space whenever I go to actually record the episode. So it makes sense to write 2 episode scripts at once rather than write one script, record that episode, write the second script, and then record that episode, right? Really, any repetitive task can be batched. Batching allows you to focus so that you can get into the zone. And it keeps you from context switching, which is switching from one unrelated task to another, because it takes your brain time to settle into a specific task. And then put together, these help you save time. So, like, think about being at the gym. Wouldn't it be easier to do 15 push-ups and then do 15 reps on the leg press machine as opposed to doing one push-up, then getting up and sitting on the leg press machine, doing one rep, getting back to the floor for one push-up, and then back to the machine for one leg press, right? Batching also allows time away from certain tasks. Once I knock out both of these podcast scripts, I don't have to do another one until next month. Yay! Finally, batching allows you to play to your energy levels. Maybe one step of a complex process is pretty passive, while there are other parts that require you to be more alert. For instance, with social media, actually creating the images requires a lot more out of me than scheduling the posts. So I want to create all of the content whenever I'm at a higher energy part of my day, and then do the scheduling later, which is basically copy, paste, drag, and drop, and click later in the day when I'm maybe not at my most mentally sharp. Productivity tip number 2, time blocking. Now, this is similar to batching, but it's coming at it from a slightly different angle. Say that you have a larger project that you're working on, like creating a month's worth of content for a client, but you also have other deadlines and meetings kind of mixed in throughout the week. As much as you'd maybe like to spend the full day working on that one project, you just can't. That's where time blocking comes in. You decide, okay, I'm going to work on that big project from 10 to 2 on Tuesday, and then from 11 to 3 on Thursday. Because you can get a lot done in 4 hours, and then you can move on to your other time-sensitive tasks. Or you can use time blocking for kind of an ongoing, never going to be finished task like email management. You just say, okay, I'm going to deal with email from 8 to 9 each morning and from 4 to 5 each afternoon. Or you can use time blocking for your creative work. Like, I'm going to write from 9 to 10 each morning before work. So I'm calling this one productivity tip 2.5. Set a timer. Have you ever heard of Parkinson's law? That's this theory where the work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. If you just write podcast script on your to-do list, then you might wind up spending a lot more time than necessary to do that. But if you go into it with a deadline, I'm going to spend 1 hour on this script, you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish because you're under the deadline. The same thing goes for meetings. I work at home, and I think a lot of people do now. So it's kind of nice, to talk to people that you don't get to see or talk to every day because you're usually just sort of within the same 4 walls. But if I don't have a hard stop to the end of the meeting, 2 hours can go by, and we've only just gotten halfway through what we needed to discuss. But if you say, all right, I've got 1 hour to talk about marketing for the Poetry Lab, you spend your hour talking about marketing for the Poetry Lab. Now, just because you set a timer for the specific amount of time, it's not like you have to stop even if you're not finished. But I think that having the timer makes you more cognizant of the amount of time that you're spending on a particular task. So even though it took me 70 minutes to write a podcast episode, that's not too bad, to be honest. I could have, if I just said, all right, I need to write a podcast script today. That could go on for hours. So it's not like you have to immediately hit end or click out of something if you hit your time, but it's really to get you to make the most out of the time that you've got. While we're on the topic of setting timers, I want to touch on the Pomodoro technique. This is the thing where you set a timer for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. That is a Pomodoro. You repeat Pomodoros for a few cycles and then you take a longer break. That works really, really well for some people, but it doesn't work for me. If I'm doing something deeply creative, like designing a month's worth of social media content or doing research for an article, I do not want to stop every 25 minutes. I need to get into that deep creative flow state. And stopping every 25 minutes is just going to make me take longer because every time I stop, I have to spend time getting back into it whenever I restart. But for some people, those breaks are something that they need. Certain tasks, I think, lend themselves well to breaking it up into 25 minutes. Like I could see taking breaks every 25 minutes if you're doing an inbox clean out or organizing stuff. The point here is to experiment and see when and how you do your best work. And remember, different types of tasks are conducive to different approaches. Productivity tip number 3, the Refocus app. So I have this bad habit of picking up my phone and just scrolling on social media or checking my email for the 84,000th time in a day. And the Refocus app helps me not do that. Right now, I've got it set to block social media, Wikipedia, IMDb, the kind of apps where I can go on like a rabbit trail, my email, and then a few other apps from 8 p.m. until 9 p.m. every single day. This is because I was finding myself in this pattern of 8 p.m. I just want to read my book for a little bit before bed. And then I'd get in bed, and instead of reading my book, I'd wind up scrolling on my phone. So the Refocus app forces me to not be on my phone when I'd really rather be reading my book. And also, by going until 9 a.m., it forces me to actually start my day with yoga and an hour of creative writing instead of scrolling on my phone for 2 hours first. You can also set limits for how long you want to be on certain apps during the day. And to be honest, I want to set additional blocks on social media apps during the workday too, because, if I get a text from somebody and I'm like, well, I'm on my phone, I might as well see what's going on Instagram. And if I check Instagram, I need to check Facebook. And then I need to go back to Instagram because Instagram's more interesting in my opinion. And then I might as well check my email. Oh, I should check this website because I like celebrity gossip. And then it's like 20 minutes later or more, usually more. And that's time I could have been working. So I will say with the Refocus app, there is an override function where you can pause the block for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, pick your duration. So it's not like I literally cannot check Instagram on my phone after 8 p.m., but I have to go into the Refocus app to hit pause before I can go scroll. And honestly, the inconvenience of having to do that often deters me from mindlessly scrolling, which I call that a success. But like I said, I need to expand its use to keep me off my phone more during the day. And really probably just in general because social media, right? All right, now this one I'm calling productivity tip 3.5. So I have some of the most wonderful friends. We share hilarious memes, we complain about work, we complain about life stuff. I couldn't get through my day, through my life without them. But there's always a but, right? My phone is constantly lighting up when I'm trying to work, and that is a major distraction. I want to know what's going on with my friends because I care about them. And so, no matter how quickly I'm trying to get through my work so that I can move on with my day, I wind up context switching. I pick up my phone, I read the meme, which usually isn't, life altering. And then I set my phone down and I try to get back into the groove. Then, by the time I get back in the groove, there's another message or two. And it's a vicious cycle. So I have taken to muting conversations with my friends. I know I can look at my phone and catch up on the thread whenever I'm taking a break, but it's no longer distracting me from my work. And for me, this is a good compromise because I don't want to hide my phone in the other room while I'm working because there are certain people that I need and want to be available for. So my phone is at hand, but it's not lighting up like a Vegas slot machine. All right, tip number 4 is to find an organizational system that works for you. I know this one is pretty basic, but really it helps. And I think it's something that we just kind of take for granted. So I've found that having a hybrid digital and paper system is what works best for me. I like the paper because I love crossing shit off as soon as I get it finished. And I like having a place to store important information that doesn't require me to pick up my phone or computer. If I have a meeting at a particular time, well, having that reminder alert pop up 30 minutes or 5 minutes, usually both, before the appointment is super useful because I hate being late to meetings or forgetting about them entirely. And my eyes aren't always on the clock. And believe it or not, my paper planner does not start flapping its pages at me to let me know, hey, you've got a resource center meeting. So whenever I have a meeting, I put it in my planner so that I can sort of see the time constraints of my day. And then I put it in my iCal so that I get a notice on my phone and on my laptop. And I've also taken to adding the Zoom link to that meeting appointment in my calendar so that I don't have to go hunting through my inbox in order to join the meeting because every second helps. I'll be honest, I've tried some more robust calendaring platforms, but honestly, I feel like they're a bit more powerful than I need. Plus, my paper and iCal method helps save me money. You do you, experiment and figure out what works for you. And, honestly, like the whole adding the iCal thing, that is a very recent adoption on my part. So even if you think you've got the system and you've had the system for, I don't know, 20 years or whatever since you were in college, think about trying something new because it will either be good or it will sort of make you remember, oh, yeah, this is why I like my system. And now we've got productivity tip number 5, the big 3. This productivity tip deals with prioritization. If you have a to-do list a million miles long, how do you end the day feeling like you've actually accomplished something? I have definitely had days where I got a lot done, but it was a bunch of small things that weren't super important. And the important stuff didn't actually get done. So that's where the big 3 comes in. This is a nice morning ritual that you can do while you're drinking your coffee. It gets you thinking about your day, planning your day before you're in the middle of the mess. Basically, you ask yourself, what 3 things absolutely must get done today? Those are the things to work on first. You can turn your attention to the less important things later. The big 3 doesn't always have to be work related. Sometimes I'll put 20-minute yoga on my big 3 because I haven't been doing yoga and I know that doing some yoga will make me feel better. Or if I need to make a simple phone call that I've been putting off, that becomes part of the big 3 so that it actually gets done. But yeah, it's often work related because, you got to pay those bills somehow. Productivity number 6, say F it and take the day off. What? Sometimes you just get overwhelmed by the hustle and grind. So, really, the best thing you can do is just step away and recharge your batteries. I don't know why, but I get so much more out of deciding to randomly take a Thursday off while everyone else is working than I do by taking off the days that I'm quote unquote supposed to. There's just something thrilling to me about playing hooky that allows me to get back into it the next day. And a big part of being able to do that is by being organized enough to where it doesn't bite me in the ass. So I'm calling this final segment, if you will, Oops, My Life Fell Apart. And let me just say, dude, it happens. Sometimes, no matter how carefully you plan, you wind up getting derailed. And I'm not even talking about something totally catastrophic happening. Just simply put, sometimes things fall apart. A project winds up taking way longer than you realized, or an avalanche of money-making opportunities all knock on your door at the same time, and you're just overloaded. So if you find yourself becoming overwhelmed by your to-do list and are unsure of where to start, I recommend doing what I call an Angela organization session. I call it that because my good friend Angela was the first person to really verbalize the concept. And it's this: whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed by my to-do list and need to make a lot of progress quickly, I grab a pen and paper and write out all of the things that I know that I need to do. I'll add deadlines, due dates, if there's a hard due date for something. Add those too. This whole process of listing out all of the things usually takes about 20 or 30 minutes because I am practically just stream of conscious writing out that list without lifting pen from paper. But once I'm done, I feel like I've got a game plan. And then I start attacking the thing. And usually by the end of the day where I've had an Angela organization session, things are back in control and I can start the next day more organized. And really, that's what productivity is all about: being organized. Now you're ready to put your own productivity plan into place. We've talked about why you need to have some productivity hacks incorporated into your life, and we've gone over several of them, including what to do when things fall apart. Just remember, there is not a one-size-fits-all system, and what works for me may not work for you. Experiment, take notes, find what works, then get it done so you can write some new shit. If you liked this episode, please give us a like and a follow and help us spread the word about our podcast by texting the link to a few creative friends. You can also find us at thepoetrylab.com/podcast. That's all for now. I hope to see you soon at the Poetry Lab.